Kevin Smith has announced a sequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Apparently he was going to work, he'd been working on a Clerks sequel and a Mallrats sequel, but those kind of fell through.
Right.
So he's like, you know what, now's the perfect time. I'm going to do something with a property that I own 100%, and that's Jay and Silent Bob, and I'm going to do a movie about them. And it's kind of, if you've looked at the premise of this movie, it's kind of perfect, because Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, the premise of that movie is that they found out that a Blunt Man and Chronic movie is getting made, which, you know, they were originally, their likeness was used for the comic book characters, right. Blunt Man and Chronic, and that's from Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
And so in Jay and Silent Bob, they go and try to stop the movie from getting made. Well, in this one,
Mark Hamill is Cockknocker.
Yeah, and there was so many cameos in that movie, but in this one, there's a Blunt Man and Chronic reboot.
Yeah.
Trying to get made, and it's kind of perfect because if you think about it, there's movies that have come out and been rebooted since Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
God, yeah, that's true. That's legitimately true, and that's terrifying.
Could you imagine being like Jason Mewes? And, you know, the way he acted around his friends was what inspired Kevin Smith to write Jay as Jay. And basically, he's been able to make a living off of just being this one character.
Yeah.
Because he's been in some other movies, but nothing like, you know, groundbreaking.
I mean, Zack and Miri Make a Porno is pretty great.
Yeah, but he still played a very Jay-like character.
He did.
And apparently, he was supposed to be in Jersey Girl. The character that... what's his name? The pie fucker? Jason Biggs ended up playing, which was like Ben Affleck's assistant or something, was supposed to have been Jason Mewes, but he was in rehab at the time. And so, you know, I guess he's clean and sober. He's been doing a lot of podcasts with Kevin Smith lately, but now they're going to do finally another Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back movie. And that was the thing about Kevin. That was the thread that tied a lot of those early Kevin Smith films together that kept me watching.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the first time I ever saw Clerks was at a friend's house, and he's just like, hey, I rented this movie and you should watch it. And I fell in love with it because it was so funny to me as a high schooler. And this is like right when it first came out on video was whenever I first saw it. And I was probably like maybe 15, 16, and loved it. Loved the Jay and Silent Bob character, but I also loved the dialogue and the jokes, like the discussions about the Death Star and, you know, the Caitlin Bree fucking the black guy or the dead guy. Freudian slip. And Dante freaking out about it. But it wasn't until I saw Mallrats at the video store and saw Jay and Silent Bob on the cover, was like, holy shit, they're in another movie. Is this a sequel to Clerks? And it wasn't. It was a totally different story, but you had Jay and Silent Bob kind of tying that movie together. And they reference events in in Mallrats that happened in Clerks, like the girl's funeral.
Yeah.
And then you've got Chasing Amy, which we mentioned earlier. They were the inspiration for Blunt Man and Chronic. So Ben Affleck and Jason Lee's characters in that, you know, they paid Jay and Silent Bob to be these characters. And then you've got my favorite Kevin Smith movie of all time, Dogma.
Yes.
Which is, you know, I know we talked, when Alan Rickman passed away, we talked about Dogma being one of my favorite movies of his. That's got to be my favorite Kevin Smith movie, bar none. And it's just a ridiculous movie that is very irreverent, but that at the same time feels like they treat that subject matter with respect.
Right.
Honestly, but in a funny way. Which, as we've talked about before, in the way I view religion and everything, you can kind of see why Dogma would be one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was kind of the last one, even though they did a sequel to Clerks, which to me wasn't as good as the original Clerks and kind of felt like its own thing other than a sequel to Clerks or a part of that whole View Askew-universe.
Right.
And then that was pretty much it for Jay and Silent Bob. And now
we haven't seen him in quite some time.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you, man, I watched Tusk, I watched Red State, and it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same like Kevin Smith movie,
right? That
you want to see. And I haven't watched Yoga Hosers yet, which if you watch the trailer, it just looks
bad,
so terrible. But at the same time, I'm still curious, and I really need to sit down and give that movie an honest shot because I do like Kevin Smith a lot.
And it's on Netflix, right?
I'm not sure. I know I can find it streaming online through other sources. But I am kind of anxious to see a Jay and Silent Bob movie again. I'm anxious to see a lot of these old characters because, you know, in the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back movie, tons of characters from all of his movies came in and did cameos for that, along with like Judd Hirsch and Will fucking Ferrell and George Carlin and Chris Rock and Mark Hamill and James Vanderbeek and Jason Biggs and, you know, just you could sit here and name off cameos all day about that. And I don't know. I'm really looking forward to it and hoping it's kind of a return to form from Kevin Smith.
I really hope so, because
he keeps saying he's going to quit making movies, and then he announces like 3 or 4 projects. But apparently Miramax is on board, and it's definitely going to get made. Apparently.
Well, I hope that it's good.
Yeah,
because Clerks 2 is not.
It had its moments. But overall, it was disappointing.
Yeah.
As a fan of the original Clerks.
Yeah.
There was probably a 3-month stretch where when I had Clerks on VHS, I would put it on the VCR and watch it every single night as I went to bed. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even have to look at the screen. I could just hear it and know exactly where we were at and what was being done. That's just one of those movies that definitely shaped the kind of person I am. You know, it's like you see one of those movies and you see it at the right time of your life, and it just becomes super relevant.
Yeah.
In you,
I mean, and I'm several years younger than you, but Dogma was that for me.
Yeah. And he just opened the door to me being a fan of a director, I think, for the first time. Mm-hmm. Being aware of who's making the movie as opposed to just who's in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good on you, Kevin Smith. And before we move on, if you really want a good laugh, check out his Evening with Kevin Smith series, where he does like Q&As at colleges and stuff, because it's great. I could sit there and watch those back to back to back to back to back, you know, for days on end.
Nice.